I'm in a hurricane. I'm reporting from a hurricane. Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wildlife photography is super challenging. It's dynamic. Things are always changing. And I'm going to show you the settings that I use to get the best wildlife shots sharper, cleaner, and even easier. I'm going to go over the basics like ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, but I'm also going to dive deep into the menu system and tell you about the tracking modes that I use, the focus area modes, and other settings that are help you get better wildlife photos. Now, I'm doing Sony specific settings like when I go into the menu system, but the settings pretty much apply to any camera brand, so that doesn't matter. You can follow along, but if you do have a Sony, I'm going to be taking you on a field trip through the menus to show you how to select everything and then ultimately set up your camera in a new mode so that you do one dial switch to be ready for your wildlife photos. But first, I want to take a moment to thank my sponsor, Squarespace, for making all of this possible. If you're taking pictures and you want a place to share them, or if you want people to buy your prints or sign up for your photo walk or an event, you can make that possible on your Squarespace website. And not only that, Squarespace will help you write on your website with AI prompts. So they're making the entire process easier. Go to squarespace.com/Chelsea, and when you decide to sign up, use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace. Before we get into the basic settings like ISO, aperture, you have to make sure that you understand the dynamic between ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and your ambient light, which is just the light that the world is providing you with your wildlife photos. Aperture is the same. It also controls how much light can hit your sensor. So if you have a wide open aperture like f2.8, it's actually open and letting more light hit your sensor. And if you're at f11, it's going to be closed down and letting less light hit your sensor. ISO, on the other hand, is controlling the sensitivity of your sensor. And so it can make your photo brighter or darker, but it's also going to introduce more noise at a higher ISO, like ISO 6400 versus ISO 100. And you're probably like, whoa, you're saying a lot of complicated things at once. You kind of need to have a grasp on that. So if you don't, you can check out our book, Stunning Digital Photography, and we explain the relationship in depth so that you can understand how one influences the other. It's only $10 for the ebook, and it has like 20 hours of video, so it's a really good deal. Check that out. You don't have to know that firmly right now for the rest of the video, but it's going to be something you'll want to grasp on for better photos. So let's get into the rest of the settings. The first setting you want to change is make sure you're writing to RAW plus JPEG, or at least RAW, and that's because when you're doing wildlife, there's a lot of dynamic range in your shots. You can have animals that have high contrast, like an eagle is dark brown and white, or you can have a scene that's high contrast, like a dark animal on a bright sky. You want to capture all of the information in your photos, and shooting in RAW is going to allow you to do that. If you want quick access to smaller files, that might be why you want to do RAW plus JPEG and have those files that are already processed so you can get a better sense for what the photo looks like before you start editing. I shoot in RAW plus JPEG, but definitely shoot at least RAW. To change your image quality, go to Menu, Shooting, then go to Image Quality, and then Image Quality Settings, and select RAW plus J, and then click the center to select it, and you're good. You want a picture of a bird, but you don't want it too bright or too dark. You don't want motion blur, you don't want noise, and you don't know if the bird is going to be flying the whole time or perched or taking off. It's unpredictable, and that's why I shoot in shutter priority mode, because then the camera is prioritizing for your shutter speed and changing everything else for you. I come out here, and the first thing I do is I put my shutter speed up fast, 1/2000th of a second, maybe 1/3000th if the kingfisher is here, because they're so fast. And if I see some action, I'm ready to shoot. But if it perches and it slows down, I have a few seconds to put down my shutter speed and take my time. So what I do is I switch it to shutter priority here on my mode dial, and then this dial is going to change the shutter speed. Try it out yourself to see how that works. The way that this works, it's going to prioritize for your shutter speed. So if I'm at 1/2000th, it's going to put my aperture in a place where it's going to get the photo properly exposed. To select shutter priority, press down the lock on your mode button and just click it into S mode. Okay, here's the next element. You have the ISO as well. Remember I talked about the relationship between these things? Now it's going to just choose whatever ISO you choose if you do it that way. So I also put it in auto ISO. And what the camera does at that point is that you choose the shutter speed, it chooses the aperture that exposes properly, and if it's still too dark, it's going to bump up your ISO so that it's exposed properly. Now, a lot of people think if you use one of the priority modes like aperture priority or shutter speed priority, it's cheating or it's lazy, but that's not true because you still have to understand how those things work. It can't save you if you're making bad choices. So if I come out here and it's dusk and it's dark and there's a perched bird and I decide to do 1/3000th of a second for some reason, well, you get that super fast shutter speed. You're not getting a lot of light on the sensor. It's already dark and your camera is going to have to put the aperture as low as possible, which might not even be f4 unless you've bought a super expensive wildlife lens. And then it's gonna have to hike up the ISO really high to get the proper exposure. And what happens with high ISO? A lot of noise. So you've made a mistake when using shutter priority. You're gonna have to still know the scene, the subject, the ambient light to make the right decision for your shutter speed. So what I like to do is look at my scene. There's a bird flying in the sky. I know I can probably get away with 1/1000th of a second if I'm nice and smooth, maybe even lower. And then my camera's gonna choose probably the lowest aperture unless it's super bright, and I'll have a low ISO. So I'll capture the movement with low noise, and that's how shutter priority works. And that's why I use it, and that's why you should use it too. To select auto ISO, click the ISO button here, and then just move your dial until you get to ISO auto and click the center button. It will say ISO auto right here. I'm in a hurricane. I'm reporting from a hurricane. Okay, ready? Oh my God.
Yeah, hold on.
Wow. Okay, we might have to leave.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of here. I'm leaving. It's too windy. You're gonna have to learn somewhere else. Now you know how shutter priority works and how to make all of your settings perfect for your wildlife photos. They're gonna be better, and you need a place to share them, and that place is Squarespace. You don't have to even take my word for it. You can sign up for free, no credit card needed. You don't have to remember to cancel. It just expires after 14 days. You can go there and you can put things in categories if you want. You could have a whole category for gulls if you're into that sort of thing. You could have a squirrel category. You could have eagles, whatever you're taking photos of. Put them there, organize them, and put your best foot forward by showing people your favorite photos. You can even set up a gallery and start to sell them. Try it out at squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks. Now let's get into more settings. All right, now that you know how to properly expose your photo, you have to know how to use your autofocus, because if your subject's not in focus, what's the point, right? And this is such an easy one to set. You just switch this dial to AFC, that's autofocus continuous, and what that means, it's going to continue to try to focus on your subject rather than just locking on focus. And this is great for moving subjects, not only for wildlife, but for sports. And so try that out and see how you like it. Once you figure out that, you'll wanna start using your focus area. And that's gonna tell you which part of the frame your camera is going to be trying to focus on. So go into your menus and select tracking. And that's going to intelligently track your subject. To select your focus area, go into your menu, your focus menu, and then into focus area. Now move down your menu until you see tracking. And then once you're there, you can go to the right or the left, and you can do wide tracking, zone, or you could do large, medium, small. Experiment with these. Now, sometimes you're gonna want it tracking wide, and that means it's gonna be tracking subjects on the entire frame. But sometimes, like if you have a little perched bird or something, you can change your tracking area to small, medium, or large, and that can help you lock focus like more effectively. So it's not trying to lock onto things that aren't pertinent. Or you could use zone, and that's also going to track, but it's just going to give you a smaller area that it's trying to focus on. Try all different ones and see which ones work for you, because you might find that you're switching them as you shoot. If I have birds flying in a blank sky, I'll just put on tracking wide, and it's going to catch whatever is in the sky. And especially if it's moving quickly, that can help me lock on focus faster. So in different scenarios, you want different focusing zones. Experiment, play, you're gonna see what you like. And next, this one's so easy, you select your drive mode, and that's this top thing here, and you can see it says like H+, and that's high speed plus, and that means you're gonna get your full 30 frames per second or whatever your camera maxes out on. And that's great for action sequences, so if I'm taking photos of a diving bird or an animal moving quickly, I'll have it on high speed plus. That also means you're gonna have a ton of pictures, so if you have an animal that's not really moving much, and you don't want 100 pictures of it, then you might want to just bump it down and go to medium, low, maybe even single shot if you're feeling brave. I typically tend to just keep it in high speed though and just like quickly tap my shutter so I don't get too many photos, but I'm still ready for action. To select your drive mode, press the lock in the middle of your dial and then you can go to single shot, high speed plus, high, medium, and that's it. And while we're talking about shutter speed, frames per second, I also really like silent shooting. So I'll often go into silent shooting mode so I don't distract any of the animals. But I like to turn it on sometimes because sometimes the shutter makes the animals react, especially little songbirds. They'll kind of look at you and go like this. I think it's cute. So I actually programmed it to my C3 button so I can easily turn silent shooting on and off. That brings me to my next point, programming custom buttons. And if you have settings that you're frequently turning on and off, you can go into your menu system and you can program these extra buttons, C2, C1, C3. Why did I do that out of order? You can program to things that you use frequently. You're going to have your entire camera set up now and you don't want to have to change these settings all of the time. So the last thing I'm going to tell you is how to program all of these settings to one of your modes here on your mode dial. And you can go in, you can program it to mode 1 so that the next time you go out to take wildlife photos, you don't have to go into all your menus again. You just flip it to mode 1. And the only thing that it's not going to change is these dials here, like autofocus continuous, high speed plus, and also your exposure dial compensation. But everything else is going to change for you automatically and make your life a little bit easier so that you don't forget. To save all of these settings that we just put in, go into menu, then your shooting, then to shooting mode, and then to camera set memory, and then select 1 to register to mode 1. Once you have that selected, when you want to put it into this mode, go to your mode dial and you're going to switch it to mode 1. If there are any other settings that you like and you'd like to share with people in the comments, feel free to do that. If you feel like I forgot something, share that too. Thanks for watching. If you learned anything or found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and that helps out a lot. I don't think you realize that it takes a lot to make these videos, and just simply by sharing them or liking them, it makes my channel a place where I can prosper and share more information. And of course, thank you Squarespace for making this video possible. If you want your very own Squarespace, go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. And good luck with your photos. I hope that this helped, and share them with me. Tag me on Instagram so I can see what you're getting. See you next time.